when he was in the Senate, I think he was running for Senate, gave a speech at a historically black church. He was talking about racism and how much racism there is. I've told you this story before. And he said, the Moses generation, referring to the generation of Martin Luther King, got us, quote, 90% of the way there, end of quote. Meaning 90% of the way of realizing MLK's dream. Our goal, the Joshua generation, referring to himself, has to get us the rest of that 10%. Now, don't you think that's pretty reasonable? There's 10% of crap we need to deal with, but 90%? And fast forward, what happens? The Cambridge police acted stupidly. If I had a son, he looked like Trayvon. There's a place called Ferguson. We've had our own issues. Racism is in America's DNA. A.G. Holder. When it comes to matters of race, America, quote, has been a nation of cowards. And we're plagued, said Eric Holder, by pernicious racism. And I got to tell you, when he said that term, I'm watching his speech. I have pen in hand. I'm writing down his examples of pernicious racism. I want to know what they are. He gave 3. An example Eric Holder said of pernicious racism, keep in mind this is our AG saying crap like this. The fact that many states are pushing for voter ID is an example of pernicious racism to deny black people the right to vote. Problem with that is every single poll I've ever seen of blacks asking them whether or not they want voter ID, they all say yes. And some polls, the percentage of blacks saying yes was the same as the percentage of whites saying yes. Is this thing on? The second example that Eric Holder gave, and this is a guy who's really respected, unlike Al Sharpton, he's not a yeller and a screamer, but his policies, attitude, positions are no different. Wrong-headed, based on emotion, not based on fact. The second example he gave of pernicious racism is the fact, and it is true, that black boys are disproportionately kicked out of a given school compared to white boys. And in fact, Jesse Jackson made that allegation against the Decatur School Board in Decatur, Illinois, some years ago when they kicked out a bunch of black kids for fighting after a football game. In comes Jesse Jackson, sues the district, claiming that they're engaging in systemic racism. And they defended themselves by pointing out that around the country, irrespective of the composition of the school board, irrespective of the race of the principal, black boys are disproportionately kicked out compared to white boys. The judge threw out the lawsuit. I read that the most frequently cited stat about black people is that there are more black men behind bars than there are black men in colleges and universities. It was said by Jesse Jackson. It was said by Barack Obama. And it is false. There are 5 times as many young black men in colleges and universities who are school age than there are behind bars. It isn't even close. Yet Obama has said it, and Jesse Jackson has said it. It is the most frequently cited stat, according to one academician, about black men